he said streaming's not his thing, so it's all good. Asked him if he doesn't mind if we share his DD. He said no problem. Would love some eyes to get on it. So, all right, people are saying read it. All right, we'll go through it. All right. So anyways, if you guys do want to use that link, you can hang out backstage. We're going to go ahead and read this DD. Looks like AJ is also here. So, why don't we go ahead and bring them on, because maybe they have something good to say about some of this DD. And, let me check something real quick here. Give me one quick second. Looks like Mrs. ABC with another 10 gifts, man, for the chat. Wow. Holy cow. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, she left me yesterday for Fire Marshal Bill.
Oh, shit. Sorry to hear that, ABC. All right. Let's go ahead and welcome AJ and also Charlie back in here, and then we'll dive into that. We'll dive into that DD. All right. Chat, welcome AJ to the show.
What's going on, PP?
Hey, what's going on, man? Good to see you.
ABC, how you doing?
Good, yourself, my man.
Not bad. Fellow Canadian, gotta get it out of the way.
Everyone's Canadian.
Yeah. So, I've been watching your show ever since you and Realize started streaming.
Actually, wow, that's a long time.
Man, I was following your hype videos. I mean, you have to. I want to give you guys a bit of background about myself, because I've been in this play for a very long time. So I'm a scientist. I work with data all the time. I study charts. Basically, that's my entire life. As also a scientist, we don't really get paid much, so I have to spend a lot of time focusing on the markets and focusing on trading. Mm-hmm. So I live a bit of a dual life. And, the first time I really got focused on meme stocks was when, we all saw what happened at GameStop. Unfortunately, I didn't even hear about it until it squeezed. And so when I first started paying attention, it was after, all was said and done. I was watching Deep Fucking Value, give statements to Congress, and I was just like, whoa, what the hell's going on?
I remember those days, yeah.
And at the time, the media was telling us, GameStop squeeze, and I'm like, oh fuck, I missed my opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I got into crypto, and 2021, the year of liquidity. So we were all trying to find the next
Dogecoin. Crypto was hot, man. Like through 2022, pretty much.
A ton of money on Dogecoin. Yeah. That was my first big win. I put it all into Bed Bath, but we'll get into that in a minute. Can give me a minute or two. So I started reading up on Reddit, what's going on Superstock, and I started learning more about, what market makers and Ken Griffin and Citadel and essentially how the U.S. markets are operating. Because I was always under this impression that, we have this free and fair market. Mm-hmm. And to hear that, what did they get their short position to 101%? Oh my, like, how did that happen? And it just sunk me in, right? So I needed to learn about this. And I was also very interested with this divide between what I'm reading in the media when they're saying like, oh, GameStop squeeze, it's over. And then you go to Superstonk and they're all like, yo, that was a sneeze. That like we were just getting started, shorts haven't closed. And I followed the saga. And then I heard about Ryan Cohen buying into Bed Bath & Beyond. And I told myself, this is something, because I remember when I actually watched the CNN video when they were interviewing Ryan Cohen, and that was in 2019 when he was talking about Chewy, and I was like, man, this young guy, and he's just a few years older than me, and he's
also Canadian, man. So like, like how Canadians are, man, so right?
Proud of this guy, and I'm like, here he is, like, look at that confidence, when he was asked about being a competitor to Amazon, he's like, fuck yeah. And I knew immediately, I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing, and this guy, he's a smart man. Yeah. And I saw what he did with GameStop, so I'm like, you know what? He's gonna make something out of Bed Bath & Beyond. So I started buying in. I started buying in when it was $14. I put in $20,000. Now,
holy fuck, man!
At the time, it wasn't everything I owned, but it was a big chunk of what I owned.
Yeah.
And
that's a pretty big move right there.
It was tough because I kept buying basically, and I'm not the kind of guy who likes to swing trade. I'm very careful, and ironically, I like to be very cautious about where I put my money. But to me, it made sense. I'm like, we have this company. It has this insane brand value. When I first went to university and I set up my college dorm, all my shit was from Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah,
so I had
that's with Bears too. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a personal connection to it, and I understood also the idea of short interest and whatnot. At the same time, I was following. So I'm a very regular consumer of Bloomberg, and not because I take what they say at face value. No, but they do offer information, and I make my own opinions by watching various media streams and whatnot. But they do follow up on what's going on in the macro. Things like interest rate, the Federal Reserve and their moves, and what's going on in the economy. And I noticed that we have these interest rates that have been going up at the highest rate that they've ever been going since the 80s, since the 70s.
Right.
We've had an insane amount of liquidity being pumped into the U.S. economy over the past 3 years because of COVID, something that wasn't expected.
Right.
And we had these short sellers who have basically been acting with impunity for the better part of 2 decades, ever since the 2012, after we emerged from the global financial crisis. And I'm like, okay, well, these people thought they were gods. They thought they could continue to short these companies, these victim companies, and get away with it. And they have gotten away with it, and they've developed this cockiness. No, this is where it's going to end with Bed Bath & Beyond. So I went all in. And I continue to go all in.
How many shares? What's your position?
I have 60,000 shares. I have 60,000.
60,000 shares with an average of what?
$2.50.
That's not bad. That's not bad from 14.
From 14 bucks.
That's not too.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. Man.
Every tax
not
return, every
everything.
God. I got an award. I put it all into Bed Bath, and I'm not gonna lie. I don't regret it. And I'm listening to your stream today. This is one of the reasons why I decided for the first time I should get on this stream. Because I hear KJ saying like, "Oh man, I can't wait to get the fuck out from a bankruptcy squeeze." I hear Roche telling us that he's out when like 3 weeks ago he was telling us, "Oh, you already won. You just don't know it yet." I was. You guys need to understand that Kaz can sometimes. I mean, a lot of people label him as crazy, but like he does sometimes say things that make sense. If you are going to do a carve off or a spin off or anything like that, it's not like one day you wake up and there's extra shares in your portfolio. No, this is a procedure. And as I mentioned, I've been following this for over a year now, for about a year and 2 months. So I've seen everything in the entire journey. I've seen the bond deals that they were trying to do. I've the Hudson Bay Capital deal. Was it dilution? Was it not dilution? I've been
it's been a total head fuck, man.
It's been a head fuck, but I think that I never doubted the board, and I know I'm gonna get some shit for that.
Amen.
I've never doubted the board. I don't doubt.
I had times where I have. But looking back with the interview and now the bankruptcy court, there's no chance, man. Like how?
You have to understand, like this thing has been planned for over a year. Okay, I think so. Everything we are seeing is theater. They are covering their asses legally. They're basically creating a situation where they have to take out these predator short hedge funds. Ryan Cohen knows that if these guys survive, if these guys get this win, which is huge for them, then his GameStop's over. You said earlier on.
Yeah, they're gonna go straight to GameStop.
Exactly. Next. With this extra liquidity and this extra confidence that they just had, right?
Yep.
So what we know is that what they've been doing over the past basically 2 years, they've perfected. Even Ken Griffin came out and he was boasting like, "Oh, thank God for meme stalkers because they taught us how to make our systems more efficient." What they didn't expect was a situation where the company takes its shares to OTC and people hold their fucking shares. Now,
they've never seen something like
that.
That
has never happened.
Never happened.
If you think about it, that has never happened in the history of the stock market. Company goes bankrupt, people sell their shares. That's it.
Yep, that's how it works. Yeah.
And we've never had a situation where the company has been overbought 7, 8, 9, 10 times. God knows how many synthetics and fake shares are out there. And we're taking this to an environment that's dry as fuck. Like there is no liquidity around. They still need those shares. They know that their short interest is 100 million. Look, unless this thing goes
and
to
it's
Chapter 7,
probably higher than that now, man. That was 2 weeks ago.
exactly.
You know,
unless this thing goes to Chapter 7 and there's literally a liquidation and they have to sell the shirts that they're wearing in order to pay back their creditors, they have to close those positions. Those positions are not going to evaporate, okay? And we're going into an environment where interest rates are not going down. They're going up, guys. And the recession, and look, we're not the only battle that these short hedge funds are fighting. They're bleeding in AMC. No, I hate AMC. I'm with you on the Adam Aaron hate.
Yeah, man.
I'm totally on board with that. Fuck that guy.
CEO stinks, man.
But it's not just AMC. It's not just GameStop. They have a basket. And they have a collection of companies that they've been fucking with. So they have their resources spread thin. Okay. They can't deal with a bunch of apes that are willing to hold in a low liquidity, dry ass environment. I'm going into this OTC with fucking open arms, man.
It may not even we don't even know what may happen.
It may not happen.
I love you already, my man.
And just like the reverse split, we're saying, that's going to happen. And then it turns out it was all, Fugazi. Doesn't.
And ABC was saying the same thing. He was like, it's going to get canceled. And look, here we are. We're in bankruptcy court. There is no RS. And now we get to see what actually happens.
Exactly. Now, so. Look, bottom line, there are 100 million reported, emphasize the reported here. Okay. 100 million reported shares. You've got Roach telling you it doesn't matter. There are, the float is 740. Dude, I've been here for fucking 7 months and I haven't seen those shares hit the market. Okay. When they were talking about dilution, I knew they were definitely increasing the shares outstanding. What you need to recognize is that there's a difference between how many shares are outstanding and how many shares are actively trading hands. Right?
Correct.
It's very possible that Hudson Bay wasn't a bad actor. At the time, I admit, I was one of the fucking... Dude, you have to change your opinions as new information as surfaces, right? Yeah. You have to be willing to have an opinion and to constantly evaluate the facts and change that opinion so that you know what you're doing next is the right move. Initially... Sorry, I'm just going on a tangent.
No, it's awesome, AJ, and that's what science and scientists is about. Is literally looking at a situation,
evidence-based thinking.
Yeah, and looking at it and speculating, what if this happened, and then observing the reaction to it. And it's like Ben Franklin with the light bulb, he tried 1,000 times speculating, what if I did this? What if I did this? Failed. And everybody calls this tinfoil, but it's not. It's literally dots that can be either connected or not. And that's what this entire process is about, is looking at the filings, looking at the tweets, looking at the narrative and going, wow, what if they created a narrative that allowed the bears to continuously buy in through the HBC deal? However, the problem with the HBC deal was they did two things. They leveraged the FUD that the media would run off with. So that was a smart move on their part. But then they made a mistake by anticipating how short they would be hit. And so therefore they couldn't maintain the floor, couldn't renegotiate, and had to cancel it. Then they went to another dilution medium through an ATM again to impose that narrative that we're diluting the shit out of things and we're heading towards bankruptcy and death spiral and everything. That forced these shorts to continue to kick the can. Because don't forget, you may say that's manipulative for them to create this false narrative, but really, they were under attack first. This is just a defense mechanism on their part.
And you know what,
in the sleeve is the bankruptcy court, Chapter 11, because you separate the debtors and you give yourself an opportunity to bring in the buyer. And guess what? Yeah. The shorts also have to cover fundamentally. Otherwise, it stays on the books and they pay interest.
Real quick, let me just say this. SF with the 20 sec. I like this guy. And then someone else, Rob G, $2. AJ, thank you for sharing your story, and we stand together.
I haven't, so man. You guys haven't heard, man. I'm so pumped for this, and I see all this doom and gloom. Something you should know about me is that I have a bit of a condition where I don't get emotional, and that's actually a superpower in this play because I can see things clearly. I can dissociate very, very easily my emotions Like I recognize I'm down fucking bad. For me to break even, this thing needs to what, 20x from where we are now. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. In fact, I have a position. Look, you have to understand. My plan is to buy on May 2nd before we take the leap. If we take the leap,
you're talking to the people who are making the same moves as you.
Look,
man.
I know you guys.
Hey, we get it.
Okay, good. Okay, but I've been seeing a lot of doom and gloom lately, and it's interesting. Like I wish I could feel that. You know,
a lot of doom and gloom that's being presented. But
it's how you view the information.
It's all your perception on how you look at it. I look at that glass as half full, not half empty. So, and you again that's the way the human brain looks, is it looks for substantive reasons to justify your reasoning. So if you're looking at something negatively, your brain will actually search for all the negative in those filings
it's
and
pattern, it's pattern recognition.
That's
pattern
right.
Recognition.
And again, I respect Roach for selling. He looks at the situation, he looks at his cost factor, and he goes, I'm out now.
And it's his own investment, right?
He also had he had great ideas and he had bad ideas. Like when he was talking to me about Newell, and you know, he really helped clarify Brett's connection, if any, right? For me. Because I was like, yeah, that would make sense. Why would he sell at the lowest, you know, Newell would be at, given that it's his baby? That came from Roach, and I'm like, whoa, that's a great point. But then he starts talking about how Sue Gov's a bitch, and I was like, no, man, you don't talk about my CEO like that. That's Sue. Okay, she's driving the ship. She's working her ass off trying to get this to work for us. So my perspective is that nothing that we have seen has been an actual failure. It's all been theater. Okay, I really think that the Hudson Bay deal was always intended to fail. I think that they keep luring their targets, because you have to keep in mind, Bed Bath & Beyond now, they're being used as a vehicle of death. The death of whom? The death of short hedge funds. Yep. It's always been the case. I don't think Ryan Cohen would come in. He knows he has this loyal fan base. He knows we make memes about him.
And all the cryptic tweets and this and that, you know, he could have just easily said, get out.
This guy is not going to throw his entire reputation because he's like, oh, I realized that they were doing share buybacks. Give me a fucking break.
He knew it.
That's why he bought in. That's why he bought in, because of the share buybacks. And then he literally he tells you, my position changed. So we're not going to get into his interview. My point is, 5 days before he sells his shares, he puts up a fucking moon emoji that he's still dealing with in court. Okay. He knows what he's fucking doing. This guy tweets once every month, once every 2 months. He doesn't put out a tweet lightly. He knows that whatever he throws, it's like a banana in a monkey cage. He knows we're going to eat that shit up. That tweet is still up. You can go to his Twitter. You can find it. If he has any shame or remorse or guilt about that, he'd take that down.
Yeah.
This guy. I just want to add, AJ. Go ahead. Finish your train of thought.
I just want to finish this last point about RC. Okay. This guy knows what he's doing. Okay. This guy has had this. If you look at the Teddy trademarks, if you follow the legal trail, they go as far back as 2019. Okay. This guy has had this whole plan from the moment he sold Chewy, and even before he bought into GME. He knew this is how he was going to navigate things. Okay. All his base are holding GME. He's not going to take GME into bankruptcy. All these hedge funds perfected their algorithms to work with apes on an open market. What they haven't prepared for, what they don't have an algorithm for, are apes holding an OTC. Yeah. Okay. This is the trap that they have been luring these hedge funds towards. And it's just the most retarded among us who are going to hold these shares in OTC, who trust me. And this is what I'm betting on. You don't have to trust me. Okay, not financial advice, but what I'm betting on is that this is going to moon like crazy in the OTC, simply because of the low liquidity. And you can bring up your point, ABC.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the RC factor. One you have to consider is that when he bought in, you're absolutely right. He was working on this then in 2019, and actually 6 months before he even wrote the letter, he was designing the Teddy website, and there's literally BBBY and Baby's products on there. on. So if you go in the Wayback Machine, you can literally see 6 months before he even wrote the letter to the board, he was already designing an e-commerce platform. But apart from that, a lot of people are going, well, no, why did the board not support him in the court case? Why did they kind of infer him as a memester? I'll give you two propositions. And the first being is one, the hedge funds hate RC guys. Why? Because he's an activist investor. Okay, they literally created FUD about Nordstrom, Alibaba. Everything is being a court case against him. He pumped and dumped. The entire narrative on their side of view is RC, and they kind of manipulated their narrative right through FUD. But what if, and I only present this, what if the board leveraged that hate for RC and played it within their narrative and allowed everybody to continue to focus on him? He's not showing up. He's not showing up. And they remain silent about it. They ignore the cryptic tweets that Ryan is posting. And what if the primary issue is to deal with the Jake Freeman by not bringing attention to it, so that they can acquire the bonds, let the media and let everybody focus on RC. And guess what? What if ICANN comes in, because RC is still keeping arm's distance, acquires the company, and then spins off baby to RC? Guess what? You get two lifts. You get an ICANN lift and you get an RC lift, and you break the basket.
Yeah. And
real quick, opinion with the $2. Apes